So, and this is kind of a question that just popped up in, and so with that regard, so sometimes, I start my day and I guess this is going to be a meditation question now. So, I mean, sometimes I sit to meditate, and of course we know, we sit and quiet our minds.
Now,
And
we have a question for you,
yes.
Because we know your brilliance. Why are we talking about meditation right now?
Well, because
Say it.
sometimes I start to, and I just cannot.
But why are we talking about meditation
Well, I'm
right
actually
now?
going to talk about not meditating.
But why are we talking about meditation right now? Because meditation is the key to everything we just talked about.
Yes.
Meditation is the key to consciously tapping in to your personal realization and witnessing of your ability to direct the energy that creates worlds.
Sometimes I sit to meditate and I am just like impulse to go do something exciting that's on my mind. So sometimes I will go quite a while without it, because as soon as I sit and I don't quite let myself get all the way quieted, but I'm just thinking of all the exciting things that I want to do that day.
Well, it's possible
So it's
that you are so tuned in that every time you sit down that you begin receiving, but that's not what's happening.
No, okay.
In other words, that could be.
Am I just too eager? Should I just actually just, discipline myself to get to that point?
Well, if you really want to know what's happening, and we know you do or you wouldn't ask, you are like so many people. We love you so much. You have adjusted to so much less of your power than is there for you, and so you're satisfied in a sort of way of mediocrity. It's like vacuuming the floor and not plugging the vacuum in. You can go through the motions and you can fake out a lot of people. Oh, look, he's vacuuming the floor. There's marks all over it. Look. So let's talk about that specifically for a moment. So what are you saying? That when you sit to meditate, that you're not quieting your mind, and so the momentum that was already within your mind when you sat down just carries you right back out of it again?
But it's a good momentum. It's things that I'm excited to do, things that I've been looking forward to doing this next day from perhaps the previous day or something like that.
Well, what made you make the statement that you just feel like getting up and going? Are you certain that you're not receiving it?
I'm not sure.
The only way that you can ever know that you are in the receiving mode of a thought that your inner being is thinking and therefore presenting in a way for you to receive it, the only way that you can know for sure is if you are confident that you have quieted your mind before receiving the thought. And if you haven't quieted your mind before you've received the thought, then you can't tell if it is a thought that is the momentum of other conscious thoughts you've thought. Now, we don't mean to imply that every conscious thought you think isn't a good thought or couldn't lead you to some sort of satisfaction, because certainly many of them do. Most of the world is operating that way. Very few people are really in steady consideration of alignment with that broader perspective, and that's why things move forward so slowly for so many people. But when you really do quiet your mind, and you know for sure it's quiet because you have that detached sensation, you feel detached, you know you're detached, you have some sort of sensation in the back of your neck, or you're beginning to have movement, and you have no awareness of thought. Now that's a little tricky because we're asking you to have an awareness of no awareness. But those of you who meditate, you know what we're talking about, don't you? Is that feeling of true detachment, where you cannot feel the difference between your nose and your toe, where you're not sure if you're sitting or if you're floating, where you really have no sensation of your physical body, where your eyes are closed and it feels like motion to you, but you're not sure if you're moving or if it's just motion within you energetically. You know what we're talking about? So if you know what we're talking about, then when a thought is interpreted by you under those conditions, you may know for sure that that thought is a receiving mode thought, that your inner being offered that thought and that you received it. And oh, you know how much you like it when you get on the same wavelength with a friend across a dinner table. Well, can you imagine the exhilaration and the thrill of getting on the same wavelength with your own inner being who is so intricately interested and involved in each and everything that is important to you, so that everything about you then is guided by you? So that's why when our friend asks us to do a rampage just to cheer you all up, we say, you got to do it yourself. You've got to figure out how to bring yourself consciously into this vibration that is always and will always be there for you. So we think it's worth sitting in the chair just a little longer and finding out if you can get into that deep meditation, and not being so quick to get up and do the sort of things that you do all day every day anyway. Why not tap into this energy and find out what source knows about your vortex? Esther has begun saying, mostly to herself and to a few close friends, the vortex knows. The vortex knows. She knows that what's in her vortex, that she knows she's put there bit by bit, but she also knows that it has expanded and evolved and gestated dramatically since the individual pieces that she has put there. She knows that law of attraction has been responding to it, and that her source has been responding to it, and that her inner being and other inner beings are aware of it. And she knows that that information about how this vibrational reality is going to become a reality that is tangible. She knows that the vortex does know. She knows that her vortex, her inner being, knows what her weak spots are and her strengths are, knows what she's likely to follow and what she's not likely to follow, always offering the path of least resistance, always aware of her path of resistance, and always guiding her toward the least resistance and the most allowance. And oh, when you start following that path, the clarity that comes is so delicious, and the results moment by moment are so delicious, and you just plain feel good. We're not talking about getting all strange and weird so that others won't relate to you. We're talking about you being sort of magical, always being in the right place at the right time, having a happy heart, having the most appropriate things to say in the most appropriate of moments, being the uplifter that you were here to be, and having the timing that leads you to the thrill of one thing and another, and even having the good timing to find a problem that will activate a solution. In other words, all of that is coming from your alignment. Yes?
Yes.
So meditation will naturally help
Meditation.
release the
Meditation is wonderful, because when you stop thought, you stop resistant thought, and when you stop resistant thought, you allow the communication. And when you allow the communication, we're not saying that you would under no condition follow forward with any action. You might very well get an impulse or receive an idea about something, but you've got to be in that receiving mode before you become the receiver or the realizer of those ideas or those changes. That's why meditation is so wonderful, because if you'll sit for 15 or 20 minutes and focus upon something that, like Esther likes to focus on something because it's present just about everywhere she goes, some sound in the room, like this fan. Can you hear it? It's boring. You're not thinking, I've heard better. You might have to release a thought and go back to the fan, and release a thought and go back to the fan. But if you are determined to focus upon just taking that fan in, just receiving that fan, you can quiet your mind. You can. And once your mind is quiet, you've stopped resistance. And then once resistance is not present within you, your cork will bob to its natural place there in the surface of the pure positive energy. And then just enjoy. Don't try to make anything happen. Don't try to affirm. Don't try to fix something that's broken. Just rest in that alignment and let that natural alignment carry you to what's next, and what's next, and what's next, and what's next.
and the hot seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that has been my experience. I've followed your studies, your teachings for 11 years now, and I was beating myself over the head basically with different processes that I was trying, because I was trying too hard, until I got to the air conditioner method of meditation. For the last year and a half, it has just remarkably changed my life.
In the Ask and It Is Given book, there are 22 processes, and if you'll notice as you read them, there is guidance about where you are on the emotional scale when you use such a process, because they're written to acknowledge the level of your resistance. Because if there's a lot of resistance, some of the processes won't work at all for you. If there's not much resistance, then some of them work easily. And so we defined that in the processes. But under the process of meditation, it says, because it works no matter where you are on the emotional scale, because as you quiet your mind, you stop resistance, and when you stop resistance, your vibration rises, and when your vibration rises, you are in the receptive mode, and the more you do it, the easier it is.
Yeah, so I do a lot of energy work as well, and one of the things I do is offer meditation workshops, teaching people how to remain centered and to allow and be in a state of ease and comfort. And the biggest resistance I have, or that I find in them, is they always tell me that, oh, I don't have enough time to meditate. When am I going to do it? I have kids, so I'm really trying to...
If anyone ever says that to you, tell them they don't have time not to meditate. If you want to go about it the slow, hard way, then don't meditate. Keep slogging it out. But if you want infinite resources and intelligence to flow through you in a meaningful way, then hook up. Tell them that not meditating is like vacuuming your living room with the vacuum and not plugging it in. You make marks all over the floor, and you go through all the motions, but there's no sucking happen.
That's good. That's a good one. So it's as simple as that, and then just telling them, like...
We've been doing the best sales job that we can muster here to help you to realize that a quieted mind is the key to the receptive mode. And so if they understand that there is something that they are receiving from, it's helpful. A lot of people meditate because it takes the stress away and they just feel better. And when you feel better, life goes better. And that's enough reason. But this is a room full of deliberate creators that are wanting to access the energy that creates worlds, that have built a vibrational reality that is pulsing with things that will thrill them as they allow them to come out into the open, where they can embrace them fully in all of their physical manifestation. And so we are sort of hitting it heavy on here because we can feel the power of the desire within people, and we know the way to guide you to it. If you're going to one other person and you're saying, can you please guide me about such and such, you are really selling yourself short, in the sense that they can't possibly give you the kind of information that your inner being, who knows everything about you, who knows everything about who you are, what your intentions were coming in, everything that you've lived and what it caused you to ask for, how that's all mixed up, and what that cumulative vortex is, who you really are as a vibrational being, what you've evolved to, where you stand as a physical manifester of that in relationship to what you've evolved to, and exactly step by step what path of least resistance will lead you to living happily ever after. We think it's worth meditating. We really do.
So do I.